So I'm fascinated by the fact that the game's not miserable to play. Alright, so Helldivers 2. Okay, Helldivers 2 is a game that just launched. Helldivers 2... Helldivers 2 released February 8th of 2024, which basically is 7 days ago, and is doing numbers. So basically, Helldivers 1 is a game that came out December 7th of 2015 that I had literally never heard of. And the information on it is relatively interesting. The information on Helldivers 1, is that its all-time peak as of SteamCharts.com is 6,691 people. All-time. The 24-hour peak is 738 people, and as of 35 minutes ago, 436 people were playing this game. Now, I have never heard of it. I'm just a gamer, right? Nothing, just whatever. But I've never heard of this game, and it's got 6,691 people, which is a relatively small amount. Like, I guess it's better than nothing, but I know nowadays multiple online games cancel if it's small numbers. So 6,691 is respectable, but nothing huge, right? Nothing major, nothing that you'd say, this is the greatest thing ever. And like I said, I'd never heard of it. Helldivers 2, which again just released February 8th, to Steam charts, I guess. Yes, let's do this. SteamDB.info. There we go. So, Helldivers 2 has an all-time peak of 203,644 people. 24 hours ago, it had 190,603 people. And as of right now, there are currently 86,648 people playing Helldivers 2. Which is interesting if you go back to the fact that Helldivers 1 had an all-time peak of 6,691 people. It's doing numbers. From a bit of looking around the internet, apparently that's why there's login issues right now, because I imagine it's very hard for anyone to really predict that the amount of people is going to go from 6,691 to 200,000 players. I read something on the subreddit that was posted, and it was like the devs had the servers queued for like 200,000 people, and then they upped it to like 310 or 360,000 people, and they hit that in 5 minutes. I like it. I like it because the game is fun, which obviously a lot of people are playing it, right? But the thing that fascinates me, and I haven't seen anybody else talk about, so it's fascinating to me, and I was going to make just a Reddit post, but it was getting really, really long, so I just, here. The thing that fascinates me is that it's not miserable to play. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so I am just a gamer, right? So, okay, I'm going to throw a lot of things out and probably sidetrack a lot, so I apologize, but I have to set a lot of groundwork for the discussion, at least for it to make sense in a way for me to, anyway. Right. So there's this thing called, to me, an online persistent shooter, which is what I kind of decided to call it. I was going to call it a persistent online shooter, but you can't use that acronym. So an online persistent shooter, what do I mean by that? I would say that is your Division 2, Destiny, to a lesser degree, Outriders, to a lesser degree, Mass Effect 3, but I would say that there's sort of that space, and then there's more your sort of arena shooter space, which is like your Call of Duty, your Modern Warfare. I've never played in that space, so I don't want to touch it and make people mad, but I know it's huge, and I'm not saying it's bad. I think that is different than more your online persistent game, which is your Destiny and Division. Now, you could say something like a looter shooter, but the problem is, and I ran into this when I made a post on the Darktide subreddit and called it my Causes of Minor Civil War. What I found fascinating about Darktide, at least in regards to this, is that I made a post. They were Darktide. Actually, I'll be talking about Darktide in a bit, but off the top, It's not a looter shooter. Your looter shooters are more like your Division 2s and your Borderlands and your Destinies. Those are looter shooters, right? Those are like your Diablos with guns. Darktide is not that. It's more like a horde survival. I would classify it more in the same sort of space as like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. But I never played the original one, and I caused a mess. But I think I fixed it. So anyway, it's not a looter shooter, but Darktide has really amazing combat, but is miserable to play for a very specific reason. I'm not saying the game is bad. Just wait. Anyway, but what's fascinating about Darktide is it apparently brought the people who like more of that non-looter shooter but online shooting people and the looter shooter people together in a way that I guess, given the discourse that happened on the subreddit, hadn't happened before, and the two different communities were kind of butting heads because, almost to a degree, each's play style isn't the opposite of, but like your non-looter shooter people, they like to have everything as quickly as possible, which is kind of more, it's getting in the woods. Anyway, I've decided to call this whole space the online persistent shooter so that I don't have to examine that entire discourse. So online persistent shooters are going to be like that, and then your arena shooters are going to be your Call of Duties, and even to a degree, even though that is called, I had to pull it up because I forgot, not a hero shooter, Battle Royale, like your, what is the name of the game? Apex Legends and Fortnite, all that stuff where you just fight each other. Or you have like the 100 people Battle Royale thing. That's going into the arena or Thunderdome group. And then you have the online persistent shooter group. And that's the separation for this discussion. Okay. Where was I? Helldivers. So okay, Helldivers itself, number one, was apparently, again, I hadn't heard of this, but it's a twin-stick shooter. Helldivers is a hardcore cooperative twin-stick shooter, a part of the elite unit called the Helldivers. Players must work together to protect Super Earth and defeat the enemies of mankind in an intense intergalactic war. That's what that is. But it's a twin-stick, so it's a top, you look down on it and you play with the controller, and I've never really tried that genre. I played one and it didn't really work for me. But that's what Helldivers won. And like I said, it got 6,000, at its peak, 6,691 players. Helldivers. And out of nowhere, to anybody who's not part of the 6,691 people, Helldivers 2 comes out. And it's got 203,000. So Helldivers 2 is actually a third-person shooter. And in my view, it lives in the online persistent shooter space. So that's where we're starting. Now, it's obviously doing numbers, and it's really fun and it's really good. But I haven't seen anybody mention why I think it's good. And also, and the reason I actually wanted to make the Reddit post was because of another little game that really started this. Let's see. Got it. Let's try one more. Alright. Another little game called Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League. Now, Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League is actually a looter shooter, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're just going to put it in the online persistent shooter section so that we can discuss it without going down into the weeds, which we already are. Anyway, Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League, released on January 30th, 2024, which is right around the corner. What am I looking for? Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League Steam charts. Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League Steam charts has an all-time peak of 13,459 people. 24-hour peak of 1,823 people, so that's a bit of a drop. And playing an hour ago, 926 people. So you're less than 1,000 people on an hour ago. To be fair, I am a night owl. It is currently 2:53 a.m., and this is just the beginning of my night, and I just got off work. So, yes, I understand that this is not the time in which most people are playing. Just saying. Anyway, yeah, Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League came out. Now, there's discourse around this one too, and the problem is I'm quite well aware of and briefly touched the Batman Arkham games, but it was never something that drew me, so I don't want to touch that discourse before someone yells at me. But I will say, those games are very well known for being industry defining. The combat system was really fun. If you were in the mood to feel like playing Batman or feel like Batman, brilliant game to play. I recently find that I like more build your own characters. I'm cold. Hold on. Alright, because I'm not going to start this over again. Where am I? I don't remember what I was talking about. Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League, the Batman Arkham. If you were in the mood to feel like Batman, that would be the game to play. But like I said, recently I found that I'm more in the mood to have my own creative control over the character. I don't want to be playing as someone. I want to be sort of living in that world. I apologize, I'm putting socks on. I want to be living in that world and, you know, just seeing what my character would do or what feels like the best thing for me to do at the time. For example, I apologize, I'm going way off topic, but this is where my brain is. Before I got highly addicted to, what game were we talking about? Helldivers 2. This is terrible. I was in the middle of designing, or at least Star Wars: The Old Republic is an MMO Star Wars. I actually really like it. It's done by BioWare. It was done years ago. I was in the blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. But I was designing a way to play all 8 characters through simultaneously at the same time, and I was like tuning the time frame of it. And if anybody's aware of it, I have gotten near to the end of Nar Shaddaa with all 8 characters, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I was needing to break off of that. So I was looking for a shooter, and I downloaded Control. You don't need any of this information. I downloaded Control and all of that, but it randomly fell Helldivers 2. I have no clue how we got here. Helldivers 2. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so that's why I didn't play the Batman Arkham games. Anyway, these are the guys who made those critical industry-leading Batman games, are the people who made Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League. Which means they went from creating this great, wonderful, amazing, beloved Batman trilogy, from my understanding, though I think there's more, but I think people really like the trilogy more. They went from making those to making Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League, which is a looter shooter where you kill the Justice League. So it was not received well when they gave this information out. So after that, this is not going to be short. After that, they made it. All of the original reviews and stuff were garbage. There's discourse around it, right? I don't want to go into all of it. There's discourse. It's a big deal all around this game. And it's not doing well. It's got 13,000, and this is kind of what I mean, right? So 13,459 people is a decent amount of people, but for something like given how many fucking firings have been going on in the gaming space, it's like the biggest. It's got 13,459 people, and that seems good, but my brain is telling me that they're gonna fucking kill it. I just feel like that from that studio's perspective, that's not enough, or not the studio. Let me take that back. From the greedy-ass fucking corporate people at the top who need to milk every drop of blood out of every possible thing they can, 13,459 people is an all-time peak, with a 24-hour peak of 1,823. That's probably what it is. The 13,459 is an interesting space. I have no knowledge of this, excuse me, right? Like, I've been sort of recently looking at the excuse me, sorry, amount of people, of logins, people, how many people are playing, just to try to tune my understanding of what to expect. I have it in no way, shape, or form dialed in, but my point, right? We circle back around to that. The 13,459 to me seems low, but something you may or may not want to try to grow. But more than likely it's going to require work to do that, and then the question becomes whether or not the studio executives want to invest the amount of money to do the amount of work to turn the game around enough to pull back the amount of people that they want to have to make the game profitable to the amount that they want to make it, right? Right. Okay, I don't know. It seems like that's a question, and I don't want to answer that one. But here's the thing. 24-hour peak of 1,823. That's the problem. Yeah, that's not a good look. The game's not doing well. Okay, the game's not doing well. I haven't played it. I've seen trailers of it, and it is visually messy as fuck. Oh yeah. Anyway, I'm not here to bash that game. But that game did come out. It's not doing well. The discourse around it has been weird. We got a lot of people who are trying to make it sound really good and like the best game ever, and then a lot of people who are like, nah, bruh. It's weird. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I don't know. I don't know that community. I haven't really studied it or lived in it or looked at it very much. But I was looking at it briefly to see whether or not I wanted to play the game, and decided against it. Sorry. Anyway, outside of that, what's important here? So, part of the discourse around Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League and why it didn't do well is that people were saying that everyone's tired of the live service model and the like the live shooter, the persistent online, the online thing, right? They were saying that part of the reason why Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League didn't do well is because it's got these online components and nobody wants to play online components anymore. That I do not agree with. Here's the thing. I'm going to do a lot more searching, and this is not going to be short, so I apologize. Let's start with this. Tabula Rasa. Who remembers that one? Tabula Rasa game. Who has heard of that? Alright, Tabula Rasa. About Richard Garriott's Tabula Rasa is a defunct MMORPG developed by Destination Games and published by NCSoft. Designed in part by Richard Garriott, this game is a role-playing video game that blends certain shooter aspects into the combat system. The initial release date was August 9th, 2007. Now, I played this game briefly. That was a while ago, so I don't remember what was going on. But I did play it, and I wasn't that impressed. But what I would say is that its existence, even back then in 2007, sort of speaks to the desire to have something existing alongside your arena shooters, right? Arena shooters have been the big name in the shooting space industry for forever. Your Quakes, your Halos, your Call of Duties, Modern Warfare, all that stuff. I played none of it. It was never my interest, but I'm very well aware that it has existed for forever, and it's huge, and makes billions of dollars, right? So it's a big thing, which is fine. But games like Tabula Rasa speak to the desire for people to play something that is more than just an arena shooter, that has a story, that has persistence between sessions. Like, the thing about games like this, my understanding, or at least MOBAs, which I have played, is so League of Legends, for example, which is toxic as fuck. League of Legends is a MOBA, a huge name in the MOBA world. I even play it. I used to main Malzahar. But what drew me to League was the lore behind it, and leveling. I like leveling. I've always liked leveling. I like getting stronger. I like moving forward. I like feeling a sense of progression on my character. And I bring that up in that way because when Darktide, I caused a minor civil war in Darktide. I apologize. It was very minor. But I stuck my toe in the discourse, and it kind of, it was a thing. It wasn't huge, but it was a moment. Okay, it was a moment. What happened? I like leveling. I like moving forward. Some people don't, and like I said, we're just going to call online persistent space. Let's all get along for right now. But tabula rasa is like an example that people want something like that to exist, and it happened back in 2007, which means that I would say that the argument that the reason why Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League is not doing well is the fact that it has online or live service components is false. What's interesting is that, again, Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League, where's the correct tab? I do not know. It came out January 30th, 2024. Helldivers 2, that's the Steam chart. Where did it go? Helldivers 2, release date, February 8th, 2024. So, shortly thereafter. And again, Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League, all-time peak, 13,459 people. I think I closed that tab. Helldivers 2 Steam chart. 203,644. So slight difference. Yes, so I would say what I find interesting and amusing and hilarious and funny and all that interesting stuff is that Helldivers 2 comes along and immediately disproves a theory. It's funny to me. The question is why? So, but Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League, go away. Go away. I don't want to talk about that anymore. Excuse me, sorry. What are we talking about? Helldivers 2 and why it's good in a way that I haven't seen anybody mention before. And I think I said this already, but I will repeat it. It's not miserable to play. So what do I mean by that? Alright, so to the beginning of the video. Where are we? 4 games. I need to bring up 4 games. I'm not going to load that one. Overwatch is one of them. I'm quite well aware that it exists in the arena shooter space over here. We're just going to set that to the side. I'm just not pulling that one up to see what my playtime is, because it's not enough that I care about. But it's here. It's on the table. The 3 games, however, that I will be pulling up with specifics are Mass Effect 3, in which I have 814 hours and 57 minutes of playtime. What else am I looking for? Oh yes, I need to unhide everything. So Overwatch, Mass Effect 3, Warhammer Darktide, in which I have 338.9 hours of playtime, and what's the other game? Oh. I apologize, I'll move faster. Outriders, in which I have 291.1 hours of playtime. Okay, here's where we're starting. What do I mean by the game is not miserable? So, we're going to start with Outriders. Okay, what is Outriders? Outriders is a third-person shooter. It exists in the online persistent shooter space. It's enough. And it's pretty good. What I really like about Outriders is the 2 main points. One, the build craft. The build craft in Outriders is so fucking good. Oh my god. For example, I'm sidetracking. Division 2. I tried that. I played Division 1. God, that's a good game. Division 1's atmosphere is so fucking good. Division 2's atmosphere is nowhere near as fucking good. Sorry. Apologize. Anyway, Division 2. Buildcraft. Every time I would go to build something, and this is just me thinking, I don't have any proof, I haven't done any research, this is just the feeling I have off the cuff, okay? Every time I would go to build something cool in Division 2, I would be unable to, because the system is like deliberately designed to not let you fucking do that. And I imagine that the reason why that is because Division 2, part of a large portion of Division 2 and Division 1's operation is PvP. Now, when you include PvP into a system, that means you have to deliberately tune towards PvP, which therefore limits you on your PvE build options and power fantasy and expressions of power, because it has to be balanced. And if it has to be balanced, that means you can't really let one specific power set explode out of control, because then that would, one, become the meta, two, it would, blah, 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 blah. You have to balance towards PvP when you have PvP, which is player versus player. I apologize for not explaining. It has PvP in a game. You have to balance towards it because it's real life people playing against other real life people, so you have to make it as balanced and as quote unquote fair as possible. So, every time I would go to build something in Division 2, I would run into the issue that it was like hard locked to literally prevent you from doing it, and I eventually decided that that was probably related to the PvP part, because that needs the balance of it, right? So anyway, that happened to me the very first time I started playing Division 2. Division 1, not so much. I really love the vibe of Division 1. Division 1, I ran into an issue where the end game kind of seemed pointless. But anyway, Division 2, yeah, I ran into the build issue. Every time I tried to build something, it was literally impossible. So I fell out of it, and then I recently just went back with my knowledge and understanding and patience and growth and all of this wonderful thing, so I wouldn't run into the very same issues I had run into the first time with the build issues. And I didn't run into those issues. I ran into a different set of issues that were the exact same thing. I fucking hate it. Anyway. Where am I? Outriders. Outriders build system is fucking amazing. I've never been able to do so much with a build system. So, just because why the fuck not, I run a Technomancer in Outriders 2, which lets me use a fucking Gatling gun with 2 turrets and a mortar behind me. Oh, yes. Also, Outriders, you heal by attacking, which means the Gatling gun makes me immortal. So I'm basically a tank. It makes you slow, right? So you move slowly, which is kind of, you have to balance when to pull it out and when to not pull it out, and blah 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 blah. There's a whole art to it. Anyway, but yeah, so that character, the way I built her is so fucking amazing. You kind of feel like an Apache helicopter with fucking a wave of artillery just fucking going over your... It kind of actually feels like Helldivers 2, now that I think about it. But yeah, by yourself, it's amazing. And you're immortal, which means you're standing there with like all of these massive monsters 4 feet away, and they're just hitting you. Oh, so the mortar, every time you drop the mortar down and it hits somebody, it reloads your Gatling gun. So you're just like reloading against people's faces with artillery shells. How amazing is that? It's fucking awesome. The build craft in there is fantastic. Yeah, and oh, so there's one, the build craft, and the power fantasy, which is what I just described. Because the only game? Okay, so I have to bring up the one game I never want to bring up, because the only game that comes close to that in regards to power fantasy is like the biggest disappointment in gaming, like ever, to me at least, and I can't believe it happened. Anthem. Oh my god. In Anthem, I tend to default to betas, right? So in Anthem, I played a Storm. And the big thing about Storms is that, so you're playing in exosuits in Anthem, like Iron Man, but 4 different ones. One guy with a big gun, one guy who's really quick, one normal guy, and your mage. So sort of like mech suits that your D&D party. And the mage basically flew. Just flew. So I'd be flying, I'd just be hovering over the battlefield, hurling down lightning bolts and fireballs. Just floating over the battlefield. Oh, and it could teleport. Because why not? Oh. And then they didn't fix it. If you still see videos of Anthem, it still looks so fucking amazing. And they didn't fucking fix it. They said they were gonna fix it. I defended them on the forums. Like an idiot. Oh my god. I don't like talking about Anthem. Moving on. Outriders Power Fantasy is really good. Here's the thing about Outriders. It's miserable to play. What do I mean by that? Alright, so, Outriders exists in this online persistent space, but what you have to know, minor to no spoilers here, is that Outriders is a game about the worst of humanity escaping the planet Earth that they have destroyed and going to a different planet. Just the worst, not everybody. I think the first expedition died. Yes, the first expedition with all the best and brightest, if I'm remembering correctly. That's the very beginning of the campaign. So, but it was filled with the best and the brightest and like exploded. And so like the second one was like the dregs. These were not good people. These were not good people. These were not good people. So yeah, they get on like the backup shuttle and then escaped the Earth that was destroying itself that they had killed and went to another planet which wanted to kill them. And then these people who were already, they're not very good people. They're not sending their best. These people became worse. They became worse. The Outriders campaign is fucking horrifying. It is filled with the worst people you can possibly think of, doing the worst things you can possibly think of, and then making it worse. Oh my god, that is a horrible world to live in. It's not good. The combat's fun. The power fantasy is fun. The buildcraft is fun. That fucking world is terrible. And the world wants to kill you. So that wasn't fun. But let's continue on. So, here's the thing. Outriders. So you get to endgame. And this more specifically is what I mean here. Outside of all of that wonderful stuff, but you finally get to endgame, and minor spoilers, you end up on this like camp, right? It's a small little camp. It's probably you're in a situation that's like the best that can possibly be considered given the overall situation. Like, it's not really good, but I guess it's better than it could be. It's there. If nothing else, it looks really pretty. It's like the prettiest part in the game. There might have been a couple places that looked better or more impressive, but it was pretty and it was quote unquote relaxing. But here's the thing, right? So you're at this camp, and you're not really running any story missions, right? So you're at this camp, and this is where you log into, this is where you load up. It's the ship in Dark Tide, or the ship in Helldivers 2, or just the menu screen in your Mass Effects. Like that's this camp, right? But it's got its charms. It's not super terrible, but it's creepy as fuck, because remember, this planet wants to kill you. So while you're sitting there and you're like testing guns out to see which, god, the customization is so good. Like, you can change the skin on a gun and it would change the sound of the gun to match the sound of that skin. And I think, now there might have been like one or two that I couldn't really differentiate the difference in sound between, but overall, like every fucking gun, at least per tier, almost, I could be wrong, I didn't get every single gun, but I got a lot of them, sounds different. So, like, it looks different, it sounds different. I was tuning based on sound. Lots of Outriders is good. But remember, this planet wants to kill you. What do I mean by that? So, it's, like, pretty-ish. It's, like, pink and something. And it looks nice, but it fucking sounds fucked up. Like... I don't know if anybody noticed this, but, like, if you're sitting there, if you're standing there, like, the fucking forest around you is making these weird, unsettling-ass sounds. To the point that eventually I couldn't play this fucking game anymore because it was unsettling. And, like, so the mission, so the way Outriders, like I said, I was explaining, you heal yourself by attacking. Now, each class heals itself by attacking in a slightly different way. So my Technomancer is basically immortal. Doesn't do a lot of damage. Could, with the expansion, if I could build her out to the 3rd point, but I can't play it anymore. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but is functionally immortal as long as she can hit something, and as long as that thing is not shielded. If it's shielded, I can't actually hit it, which means I can't heal, which means I die pretty quick. Or, if I can't reload, like, there's limitations that you have to work around, but for the most part, I was able to just fucking put my huge gun. It's not that big, but it's still a Gatling gun. Excuse me, minigun, whatever. Up right in the get boss's face and just kind of fucking stand there until that bitch died. So I'm okay. What was I saying? Anyway. So that's my Technomancer. I did run each of the other 3 classes. Excuse me. I like some more than others, but each heals itself differently. Outside of the Earth class, I don't care anymore. The Earth class heals similarly to my Technomancer. I didn't really like it. I think it's like Diva or something. I didn't really like it as much. But you have one that's sort of like the Anthem classes. You have like your Technomancer. Too much information. Anyway, each heals differently. But it requires you to really just plunge into combat and, like, dance on the line of death, match after match after match, because you have to throw yourself into the horde of enemies and use whichever attacking healing capability your class uses to stay alive. So it's intense, but it's, like, unremittingly intense. And then you go back to the camp, and that's fucking creepy, and it, like, has weird sounds that mess with your head, and yeah, it's kind of pretty, but at the same time it looks kind of like it's unsettling and miserable. It's not relaxing, it's not fun, it's not a place you can really sit there and relax to. It's kind of a place, even unconsciously, you kind of have to brace yourself against, and then you know, toss yourself back into combat again. And the combat's fun and great, and I can pull off some fucking things I've not been able to pull off in any other game. So I really like it, but at the same time, it requires you to really dive in there and really dance on the razor's edge to stay alive, especially if you start trying to balance your difficulty setting against, you know, I'm sorry, I'm talking forever. Your difficulty setting against what your frame, I don't think it was a frame, what your class could support at the time. So, you know, if you're trying to push that edge, just how far can I go? Just, you know, how high up the levels can I climb with my existing stats, knowing that I need to get better equipment, get better gear to get higher. So what's the highest I can comfortably run, or even sort of uncomfortably run if I push myself to get the maximum amount of experience and money and frames and stuff like that, right? So if you're running at that level, you're throwing yourself into danger over and over again. And in a game where the combat is and can be as intense as that, because remember, you're healing by attacking, so you're getting swarmed and you're spinning and dodging and diving and just trying to survive the flow of battle by being in the middle of it or far away from it, depending on your class. But you're constantly in combat, and you're healing by doing damage. So if you stop doing damage, you stop healing. So you constantly have to be moving, constantly have to be doing whatever it is you need to do. which is fun, but it's super intense. And then, like I said, you go back to the camp, and that's weird, and that's unsettling, and not really relaxing. So that is Outriders. Now, they came out with an expansion that made some of the build. It made the buildcraft more interesting, and I kind of am curious to see what it does. But they made it worse in a way that I hate them for. Like the camp has become instead a like a little chalk covered ghostly empty circle surrounded by tables. So even what little connection you had with the prettiness or with all the companions around you is completely gone. It's just this empty, dead, lifeless little space, and then you go from there and run into the endgame mission, which is just this one unchanging dungeon. Except apparently the enemies in certain rooms can change sometimes, so there's that. And you go through, I went through once, to see the story beats, and I didn't hate it. And then I realized that I would be doing that continuously, for no real reason. Nothing would change. Maybe monsters in a specific room one time, maybe people in a specific room one time, but it's the same dungeon over and over again endlessly, without change, forever, and that's fucking terrible. So I didn't play that anymore. But before that part, it's just sad. Like, what? Anyway, before that part, you have the camp, and that's more what I'm talking about when I mean it's miserable, because it's just the combat itself requires a high level of attention for a long period of time, and it requires a high level. It's stressful. It's not relaxing combat. You're in there. It's fun, but it keeps you on your edge. And then when you go back to camp, the camp is fucking weird. It's got this weird sound and weird look. It's unsettling. So it's a miserable game to play. Moving on to Darktide. Now, the story of Outriders is what I just explained. The story of Darktide is that it's Warhammer 40k. Just to be completely correct, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. That's 40k. It's not a fun place. I am definitely not going to try to annoy the 40k people. I have a very slight. I've got Darktide, Dawn of War, Gladius, and Inquisitor, and I bought 2 books, and that's my. And I've spent some time on the wiki. That's the extent of my knowledge on 40k, which in regards to 40k is basically nothing. So I am not in any way, shape, or form going to begin to have discourse about it. But what I will say is that it's not a happy, fun place. Darktide, I have 338.9 hours. Darktide has really good combat. It's not as good in power fantasy as Outriders. The buildcraft I didn't really find anywhere. It's there, I guess. They've made changes, and I went back and it was fun. I could build out a little bit better. Nothing like Outriders. I mean, no way, shape, or form. But the combat loop itself is actually really fun. It's really fun, and I could have fun with it. I play a psyker, and I could do some pretty fun things. The combat is really good. The problem, or I won't say the problem. Well, yeah, the problem is that it's kind of also miserable to play. Here's the thing: it's Warhammer 40k, right? So, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. It's Warhammer 40k, and Warhammer is basically the grim dark of the grim dark. Like, that's its thing. Its thing is that it's grim dark. So it's not going to be fun. Like, everybody's villains. I like the Tau briefly, because they seemed like good people, and then they were like, no, apparently people got mad that the Tau were good people, so they made them worse, because they're not allowed to be happy in 40k. Like, even the, I don't know if I can actually find this. Warhammer 40k tip messages. Let's see. Nope. Oh, here we go. Alright, so in most games you play, the game is loading and it gives you a tip screen, right? So, some of the Warhammer 40k ones that you see over and over again every time you launch in. A small mind is a tidy mind. A suspicious mind is a healthy mind. Abhor the mutant. Aim without mercy. Be steadfast in defense. Be not merciful. Blessed are the Blessed are the intolerant. Blessed are the merciless. Blessed are they without introspection, for they shall know no doubt. Blessed be the subject. Like, this is... I'm gonna stop reading now. Those are the tips. Like, this is the world of Warhammer 40k with the God Emperor on the throne on Earth, the chaos in Space Marines and fucking Imperial Guard, and like it's constant war all the time. People being turned into fucking brainless machine things. It's not a good time. It's not a good time, right? But I mean, that's its thing. It's known for being the grimdark of the grimdark, right? So that's its thing. Fun, whatever. Obviously, I have more than a couple games there, which means I don't dislike the world and all that stuff. It's fine. It's great. Whatever. But I'm saying it's not pleasant there. It's kind of half miserable. Like, me personally, the combat is great. Okay, so here's the reasons why I stopped playing Darktide. The combat is great. I've got 300 plus hours, right? But and I'm gonna directly reference this with Helldivers 2. I promise I will get there. You play and you move up in levels and you move up in difficulties, and a lot of the discourse, especially that I ran into when I made my post there, was you play because it's fun, not so much because it's a looter shooter, because that space does not like looter shooters, I guess. I don't know. Putting them in online persistent shooter right now, not touching that one. But that's the thing. From my perspective, yes, I can still build things, right? I haven't completely maxed out all 4 of my characters. I haven't completely maxed out everything, right? There's still places for me to build. There's still places, gear and equipment for me to get and all that stuff. And again, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that Helldivers 2 is going to keep my attention longer or is better in regards to combat, blah, 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 blah. I'm saying there's a very specific thing that I'm seeing about Helldivers 2, which is that it's not miserable, which both games... Darktide, which is, I guess, kind of comparable, as well as Rock and Stone, Deep Rock Galactic. I briefly touched that. It didn't really click with me. I'm not going to go back. But I know it's good and fun and great and whatever, but that sort of lives in that same spot. And then Outriders, which is one of those places you go if you're looking to scratch the online persistent shooter itch, and if you're anything like me, you've bounced out of Destiny and bounced off of... Division 2's limitations, at least in my respect, though I am looking forward to the movie. Right, so you've probably played these, right? And I'm saying, like, Outriders was that experience. Darktide, sort of, the combat is fucking phenomenal. Like, at a specific point, I distinctly remember, like, I was, like, threw myself in combat, and it's, like, I saw, like, it was really fun, right? It was good. It was fun. So I really like the combat. But, like, you're living in this fucking grimdark world of terribleness and, like, this dark ship. And, like, you got those messages flashing at you all the time. The music is phenomenal, but it's also this really gothic thing. The art style is really good, but it's also this dark and really gothic thing, and it's just fucking oppressive. Kind of by design. Also, in Darktide, it's not like you're playing like a superhero or a champion or anything really. You're playing a reject. That's the thing they're called rejects. You're basically a criminal for some reason. You can kind of pick what you did which is like, I don't know, I think is a crime. I think it actually might be. I think one of them is like, blessed are the thoughtless. Didn't I say that? Which is, you know, a great place to live. You start as like a criminal for some reason that you can pick, and then like ship is attacked by heretics. This is just the intro, so I don't know if this is spoilers, but it's like the tutorial mission, so I don't think so. Yeah, so the ship is attacked by heretics, and then you kind of fight your way through, and then they're like, I guess you're not totally trash, maybe you won't die, and then they just throw you into your Suicide Squad. You're literally a Suicide Squad. But you're not like a anti-hero, you're just like a piece of trash. It's not the most uplifting and fun of places. It's not as bad in terms of just being fucking awful as Outriders, but it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. The game and the combat is fun, but the atmosphere and all that shit is fucking oppressive, and it's just not fun for me. Some people may love it, but for me it's not fun. The reason I brought up Mass Effect 3, one, it's my favorite. But two, it's because it's kind of similar but not. So first of all, shout out, I have to do it. I definitely apologize. Shout out to Sovereigns. You exist because we allow it, and you will die because we demand it. Fucking villain speech in Mass Effect 1, because that's the most baller fucking villain speech I've ever heard in my whole fucking life. Even if it didn't really pay off that well, that one speech in that fucking moment, the first time you get it, is amazing. Anyway, I love BioWare. I loved old BioWare and Mass Effect, so that's partially why Anthem hurt so bad. And they're working on a new Mass Effect, man, and I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Mass Effect 3. So it's dealing with a sort of galactic threat level thing too. So it has its sort of grim darkness, but it doesn't feel as miserable to play mentally, like headspace wise, as your Dark Tide and your Outriders. Which is interesting. And I think it's partially because it's following in the franchise. So you probably would have already played through all the games and played as Shepard to get to it. But I think it's also because it's not that grim darkness of like 40K, which is just, it's the granddaddy of grim darkness. And it's not as I'm trying to top myself with just how horrible humanity can be as Outriders. It's literally, the whole galaxy comes together. Turians, Asari, humans, Batarians, fucking Krogan, fucking Geth. Like, everybody comes together to fight against this galactic threat. So it's not, even though it's kind of dark and not oppressive, it's dark and it's kind of it's got the apocalyptic vibe. There's this, cleaner, better message in it, because it's like everybody coming together to fight against the threat. I've always preferred cooperative games than PvP games. I don't like what happens to my brain. I don't like, it's kind of, bro, like, you hear how toxic sorry, I personally don't like them, right? So I love cooperative games because it really gets that vibe. But Mass Effect 3 was that, like, it was people, God, that's so good. But that's a game that could be dark and have that same sort of mood, without, like, just being miserable to play like the other two. Which leads me finally to Helldivers 2, which is not miserable to play, which is not something I've seen anybody else mention. Helldivers 2, at least so far, is like Starship Troopers, mixed with the Terminator. And not like the movie, but like the war against them. It's fun. It's fun. At this point, I mean, my time and seat for this game is nothing to speak of in any way, shape, or form. Where am I? 19.4 hours, right? So I've just started. I mean, it just came out. I just got it because I heard, I had heard about it vaguely recently. Not really the first one, I think maybe, sorry, but I think, whatever. Helldivers 2, like from Skillup's channel, I had heard about it. So I vaguely heard about it, never did any research, and one of the guys on my Discord played it. So I asked him, and he said it was really good. And then, like I said, I was doing the SWOTOR thing, and I needed, that's a lot of Star Trek, excuse me, Star Wars, don't kill me. I also have a lifetime membership to the Star Trek online game, and I have both tabs of my Reddit screen open all the time right by each other, so sometimes don't yell at me. That's a lot of Star Wars. It's really good, it's really fun. The one of the writers for Star Wars The Old Republic is going to be working on Cyberpunk 2. If the Mass Effect trilogy is one of my favorite series literally of all time, Cyberpunk, especially now, ties it. The Mass Effect trilogy, or the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, is the greatest movie I've ever played. That's how I would describe it. And if you play it, if you're a gamer and you've never played it, please play it. Please get the Legendary Edition. Start at Mass Effect 1. Always start at Mass Effect 1. Especially if you've never played it before. Start at Mass Effect 1 and go through the entire trilogy, and you will see one of the greatest games literally ever made. Just the end. Yeah, it's one of the greatest entries in science fiction. It's the greatest movie I've ever played. That's the Mass Effect trilogy, which is why Mass Effect Andromeda, if Mass Effect Andromeda came out and hadn't been named Mass Effect, I think most of us would have been like, oh, this is fine. But to follow on the heels of that trilogy, regardless of the ending, regardless of the discourse around the ending, to follow on the heels of that trilogy with Mass Effect Andromeda, shameful. Shameful. It has its charms. I didn't even finish it, dude. I've got 800 hours in Mass Effect 3, and I couldn't even finish Mass Effect Andromeda. Shameful. I'm sorry. Anyway, Cyberpunk now ties with that, in terms of if the Mass Effect trilogy is the greatest movie I've ever played, Cyberpunk is the greatest movie I've ever lived. Because it's like living the life of a character inside Blade Runner, for example. It's fucking phenomenal. It's probably the most immersive game I've ever played, and I have it set up kind of specifically designed to be as immersive as possible outside of VR. At least in my opinion. But especially modded up, it's fucking immersive as hell, dude. And so, the guy who wrote Star Wars The Old Republic, or at least one of the writers behind Star Wars The Old Republic, which is a phenomenally good game, and BioWare back when, it's like Mass Effect Light set in Star Wars. So the stories are amazing. Like, to this day, the stories are amazing, and weaving all 8 of them together like the way I'm doing unlocks levels and layers of depth that are almost indescribable. Like, seeing how things balance, and I need to at least get to the point. I need to finish Nar Shaddaa so I can actually post this list on the subreddit, because I need at least one other person to experience this like I have. It would be a shame. It would be a shame if nobody else saw this, because balancing all 8 together is fucking mind-blowing. Just fucking mind-blowing. But it's also a lot of Star Wars, so that's why I had to take a break, and that's how I got hooked on Helldivers 20 hours ago. I haven't played. I need to go back. Anyway, Helldivers 2, for all the other things, the combat, all the things everybody else is talking about as to why this game is good, the thing that I sort of consciously noticed, I want to say last night, or I think last night or the night before, was that it's not miserable to play. Outriders, you're sitting at that camp and you're dealing with the stress of combat and the intensity of it, and fucking the nerve tingling. You're so fucking tense playing that game, and you go back to the camp and it's like, nah, even that's fucking awkward, and you're just hunched over and you're tense, and I don't like it. And then Darktide is just fucking 40k, which is good in like small doses. The combat's really good, but it's just fucking oppressive. It's oppressive. That's what it is, and it's kind of by design and default, because that's how that's the world. But it's just fucking oppressive, and you're a piece of trash. you're a reject. Not 40K. Helldivers 2 is Starship Troopers. When you finish a match in Helldivers 2, and you like take a little fucking elevator up to the stop, and little fucking fireworks go off. And it's just fucking fun. Oh my god. Even the login movie is like pure fucking Starship Troopers propaganda. It's like so cheesy. Like I don't know if anyone noticed this, but like if you watch the opening cinematic and just watch him wave to the person in the back, and just how weirdly awkwardly long he stands, like deliberately waiting to get the obviously scripted response. And then contrast that with the weird like half wave he does to the two soldiers that are just casually walking down the center of the street as they talk about democracy and for democracy. Spreading the might of democracy. It's just fucking fun. But it's not oppressive. It's obviously the Starship Troopers propaganda. If you know Starship Troopers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's presented in a way that's just fun. It's just fun. It's lighthearted, and fun. And just fun. It's not oppressive. And I can't tell you. I mean, I've got, like I said, I've got 500, 600 hours in those two other games, because there's not much else out there. There's Division 2 that runs into the balancing issues with PvP that I've run into twice now. I love the open world system in Division 2. I love running around. I love redoing, building the outposts up. I love watching that come together. Division 1's atmosphere is fucking untouchable. Like, that's New York. It's fucking great. It's just I keep running into that build system. But Division 2 is a good game. But you've got that. You've got Destiny. I bounced off Destiny forever ago. Bro, I tried to go back to Destiny a couple of years ago just because I was looking for something to scratch this itch again. And it was the most anti-new fucking player game I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it's free to play now, and I played it forever ago. I think it actually is on here. Destiny 2. Okay. This says 6.7 hours, but I know I finished the campaign at some point, so I don't think this... Oh, I think it had it non-Steam before. I did not like it when I went back, but like it just drops you into the middle of a fucking campaign. It's like, for everything I was talking about Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy, it's like if you just joined up in the second third of Mass Effect 3 having absolutely no idea what's going on, and the game tells you fucking nothing. You just like, it's designed for the people who have been playing. The onboarding was literally terrible. Like, I had no desire to even try to figure out what was going on because it was so disrespectfully, unapologetically uncaring towards the fact that I was either a new customer, a new player, or a returning player who hadn't played in a few expansions. Like, there was nothing. It was just like, oh god, it was fun. So yeah, there's that. And what else is there? Rock and Stone. Okay, that's there. It's doing well. It's got good... I mean, but what else is there? I was waiting for Project LLL. It's the thing I'm looking for, but like, if I want this online persistent shooter space, I'm so limited. That Tabula Rasa, man, if that was released today, like an actual full-on fucking MMO with fucking FPS, dude, homie. Not only do I think that Suicide Squad Kil The Justice League failure is not related to the issue of it being live service, I'm fairly certain all you gotta do is figure out how to make a good game, and you know, Helldivers 2's rocking 200,000 people purely on Steam, by the way, which it released simultaneously on the PlayStation. And brief research from the devs and on the subreddit say that the numbers are probably 1-to-1. So from a maximum online count of 6,500 people in Helldivers 1 to 400,000 people with over 1 million units sold in Helldivers 2, I'd say the market's there. You just got to release something good. We haven't fucking had anything. What's the last thing that released? Outside of Suicide Squad, Kil The Justice League, which is not doing so well. But yeah, it's just fun. But it's fun in a non-miserable way. That some of the only other choices we have to play are not. It's not miserable in a way that those games are. And not like in terms of being a bad game, but just sort of mentally draining to be in that space for hundreds to thousands of hours. Like, that's not a good headspace to be in. You get off work. Yeah, terrible day. You want to go home. You want to chill. And now you're just going to be in this weird, oppressive... Like, what? That's not a good place. That's not a good headspace. Or you go to Outriders, which is just this terrible world of terribleness, trying to be as terrible as possible. And then the devs release an expansion that just completely just disrespects you. They yeeted the whole story. Oh god. But that's it. And then Destiny, which doesn't care about you as a returning player. Division, which has its good parts, especially if you like PvP. But for people like me, looking for more expression and more buildcraft is kind of limiting. Darktide, oh, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, and so this. So this is fucking fun, but it's non-miserable. It's non-miserable, and I think that's a huge part of why it's doing the numbers it is, because, like, bro, we need some non-miserableness, especially because we haven't had a space to live in that's like it for a while. But yeah, that's at least part of... I have, like, a whole other section on why I think it's doing well. That kind of addresses the looter shooter, non-looter shooter part a bit, but I'm gonna stop now. So that's it. That's part 1. If I decide to post this and do part 2, yay!